As segregation and violence spread, Black Americans began a sharp debate about how they should respond. On one side stood Booker T. Washington, president of Tuskegee Institute. On the other stood W.E.B. Du Bois, a Harvard-educated historian and journalist. Born in 1856 to slave parents, Booker T. Washington founded Tuskegee in 1881 to help blacks learn useful trades. Instead of pushing for immediate equality, Washington said, blacks should develop vocational skills.
To those of my race who underestimate the importance of friendly relations with the Southern white man, I would say, cast down your bucket where you are. There is as much dignity in tilling a field as in writing a poem. In all things that are purely social, the races can be separate as the fingers, yet one as the hand in all things essential to mutual progress. Booker T. Washington.
Where Washington counseled patience and gradual uplift through hard work and black self-help, W.E.B. Du Bois demanded immediate and equal rights for African Americans in schools, housing, and employment.
Mr. Washington insists on thrift and self-respect, but at the same time counsels silent submission to civic inferiority. Is it possible that 9 million men can make progress in economic lines if they are deprived of political rights? By every peaceful method, we must strive for the rights which the sons of the fathers would fain forget. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. W.E.B. Du Bois, 1903.
Other Americans lost their rights because of the content of their opinions rather than the color of their skins. One major target of persecution were the socialists, who believed that American workers, not their bosses, should own the nation's industries. Socialist Party candidates won offices in over 300 cities, including Milwaukee and San Francisco. In the 1912 presidential election, socialist candidate Eugene Debs won almost 1 million votes. To Debs, the Wilson-Roosevelt dispute over the size of American corporations made no sense. All that mattered was who owned them.
The Republican, Democratic, and Progressive parties all stand for private ownership of the productive machinery used by workers. The Socialist Party is the one party which stands squarely for the abolition of industrial slavery. Eugene Victor Debs, 1912.
This message struck fear into the heart of the nation's law enforcement authorities, who tried to silence the socialists by jailing them. Debs himself would be arrested and sentenced to federal prison for opposing the United States' entry into World War I. Another group persecuted because of their opinions were the Industrial Workers of the World, or Wobblies. Like the socialists, the Wobblies thought that laborers, not corporate kingpins, should own the nation's factories. But where socialists preferred to work through the polls, the IWW called for strikes and sabotage against big businesses. So businessmen organized groups of vigilantes to harass and intimidate Wobblies. Wobblies were beaten, branded, and forced to kiss the American flag on their knees. Some were even shot and killed. Like Eugene Debs, hundreds of Wobblies would be hauled off to prison during the First World War. Back before the turn of the century, Jane Addams and her Settlement House movement helped usher in the era of progressive reform. Suffragists like Carrie Chapman Catt would help bring the era to a close by finally winning women's right to vote. The suffragists argued for the ballot as a way to ensure the progressive triumph. If women had the vote, they claimed, the bosses would fall. Saloons would disappear, and the United States of America would be an altogether better place.
Public-spirited women who wish to use the ballot do not wish to do the work of men. They simply want an opportunity to do their own work and to take care of those affairs which naturally and historically belong to women. May we not fairly say that American women need the vote in order to preserve the home? Jane Addams, 1910.
Yet suffragists also embraced the dark underside of progressivism, racial and ethnic bigotry. Many women argued for the vote in racist terms, promising that the female ballot would help keep white Protestants in charge.
There are 3 times as many American-born women as the whole foreign population, so the votes of women will be the only means of overcoming this foreign influence and maintaining our free institutions. We are in danger of Catholic domination. There is no possible safety unless women are given the suffrage. Olympia Brown, 1889.
Of all the women in the South who can read and write, 10 out of every 11 are white. The enfranchisement of women would ensure immediate and durable white supremacy. Bell Kearney, 1903.
Racial prejudices also helped push through a new constitutional amendment to ban the sale of alcohol. Prohibition swept the South when false rumors of drunken, rampaging blacks enveloped the region. The country's entrance into the First World War in 1917 pushed prohibition over the top. The grain used to make alcohol was needed for the war effort, and drinking was becoming not merely unwise, but un-American, since the German enemy consumed alcohol. World War I would spell the end of progressive reform. Trust-busting came to a complete halt as corporations formed huge cartels to arm and equip the nation's soldiers. The war also brought a new cycle of prejudice and violence against minorities as race riots flared across U.S. cities and thousands of immigrants were arrested or deported. The progressives still had unanswered questions. How would the United States regulate its enormous industrial corporations? How would it integrate its diverse racial and ethnic groups? How would it fulfill the democratic ideals upon which the nation was founded? Since the American Revolution, waves of reformers had called upon the nation to renew these ideals. Before the Civil War, they fought to eliminate slavery, drunkenness, and poverty. The progressives picked up this reform spirit, which would reappear during the 1930s and again in the 1960s. Behind all of these movements lay the distinctive American faith that we can remake the world.